I'm ready when you are. Okay, I guess. So I'm calling this "Nothing We've Been Through Will Be Wasted."
Good point.
And I'm sort of working through this because, well, we've had for the last couple of weeks, and we will for about another month, shows on the radio site. And we've talked about it here in the sanctuary too, about disasters and pains and sorrows and trials and tribulations that have been coming and will continue to come. And some people have said, boy, that's really depressing. You know, man, all you're talking about is all this negative stuff. And I say, nay, it's not. Well, there's a difference between, I think, pessimism and just brutal honesty. And God deals in brutal honesty, in the truth. And the truth is, God is always training us up to be the people that He created us to be. And I think most of us have gone through some stuff, some trials and tribulations in our lives. And most of us have had some setbacks. The good thing, though, is we can always come back from a setback. And some of us have walked through some disastrous events that have happened around us and maybe even marked us a little bit and those around us.
Wow.
And today I'm here to tell you that nothing that you've gone through is going to be wasted, okay? And I base that on the scripture that I'm using is Exodus 3. So turn to your Bibles. If you have your Bibles, everybody, you can read along with me. Exodus 3, verses 1 through 6. Okay? And verse 1 says, Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro. Maybe I left out a word. Or two. Maybe I should read that again. Moses, the mighty man of God, was keeping somebody else's sheep. The man who was going to overthrow the Egyptian empire. The man who was going to lead 1.5 million people out of captivity and through the wilderness. The man who established the First Testament church was shoveling sheep dung for somebody else. Can that be right? We can learn something right there, and that is not to despise the days of small beginnings. So verse 1 again. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of Jehovah appeared to him in flames of fire within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. And Moses said, hold on, I gotta get somebody on the cell phone. Get CNN in here. Get a camera crew. I can't buy this. Wait a minute. No, he didn't say that. Moses said, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. And when the Almighty God had seen that he had turned aside, they gave it one of these. Whoa, look at that. Turned aside to see, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face. He was afraid to look upon God. Let me read verse 1 one more time. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. This is about the place where you should be looking at your neighbor and saying, nothing that you've gone through is going to be wasted. Because God,
Don't waste any.
yeah, don't. God creates this nest for all of us. Kind of like the mama eagle creates a nest for her eaglets. And it's a comfortable environment, this nest, for us. We can just sort of hang out and chillax and be fed and get nurtured for a certain period of time. And then when the time is right, the Bible says, when the eagle stirs her nest, so will I, God, lead my children. Do you know how an eagle stirs the nest for her eaglets?
Pushes them out.
Well, she makes it uncomfortable, actually. She makes the nest uncomfortable for them so that they can't rest where they were once used to rest. And I'm sure many of us know too that God will make things uncomfortable for us in order to stir us up a little bit and get us out of our comfort zone and get us out of the lazy boy so he can get us moving towards that place of purpose and destiny that he's already created within us. And that's the place where we can just stretch out a little bit, stretch our wings and our gifts that we probably didn't even know we had to begin with, that God put in us. But he's got to get us to spread our wings a little bit, to soar like that eagle. So he'll give us a nudge. God will give us a nudge and stir that nest so that we can take flight and provide this outward display of action based on that inner calling of his purpose for creating us, just like he has. So he will urge us to spread our possibilities and overcome the adversities, to fly like an eagle. Now, having the understanding of what I just said, let's take a little bit closer look at Moses in this scripture, because this is really a perfect illustration of this concept. Because to begin with, we have to remember that God put Moses in a pretty cushy situation. You know, while his brothers, his brethren, the Hebrews, were out there in the hot sun, toiling and sweating, trying to make bricks with no straw, Moses was in the palace being fanned. Yeah, being fed grapes. Okay, that's me speculating, but I'm thinking that's kind of, he was in the lap of luxury, you know, because he was in the seat of this Egyptian empire. And he was being nurtured under the mantle and the covering and the skirts of the Egyptian Pharaoh, whose daughter, of course, had seen little Mo as a baby, and she took him into the palace, and she loved him, and she raised him as her own, which means she lavished all of Egypt's finery upon this child. So he grows up in an environment that has provided the choicest of all things. They're at his beck and call. He's exposed to the best educational systems that Egypt had to offer. And that's really no small thing, because even today, in our contemporary society, we still study the Egyptian Empire and the impact that it had on our society. The science program of the time of that Egyptian Empire was way beyond anything of its time, and all the sophisticated technology that we've certainly had little snippets of being able to see, that we've seen videos that showed exactly how far the Egyptians were ahead. It was far superior to anything in all the constituency of Egypt. And well, the pyramids too. I mean, they still baffle people to this day as to like, how the heck did they build those things? You know, all the rock that was so heavy and put in perfect symmetry in those triangles. So the Egyptians were not just powerful militarily, they were intellectually above all others. And Moses is all cuddled up in that nest, that Egyptian nest, and just taking it all in and enjoying it until God stirred the nest. You can always tell when God stirs a nest, because all hell breaks loose.
It's coming at me with Yul Brynner until that time.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, just like the eaglet's nest, you know, when the mama eagle stirs up the nest, the little eaglet will try to sit, you know, it'll try to hop over to where it once was, and it's uncomfortable, so it gets up and it moves over here, tries to sit there, no, that's not working, it jumps over here, no, that's working, and it goes over and over and over again, repeating the process until it finally figures out, you know, something just ain't right here, it's not the way it once was, so it's time to move on. But just because something doesn't work in our lives doesn't mean that we're under satanic attack either. It could be possible that, just maybe, could be possible that you're trying to rest in a place that God used to be. And he's moving you out of there, trying to get you to move out of there. Because seeing yourself through a lens of who you once were doesn't allow you to see you through that lens of who God wants you to be, who he's made you to be. And he's the one that is stirring you, us, you, me, trying to get us to move along. And sometimes God has to stir that nest, because the purpose of that person or place or thing in your life has been completed and it's time to go. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to raise something up on which God has already turned the page in your book of life. And there's nothing more frustrating than trying to be somebody that God is trying to crucify out of your life. And this is the point that when we get there, we really have to be nimble. We have to be nimble of thought and kind of have this real fluidity of thought, because we have to be able to transition from one dimension into another, from how you once saw yourself into where God is now calling you. And sometimes, well, I'll speak for myself. I have to, I gotta, give me another one. Okay, I'm trying to pay attention now. Maybe I've got it now. Because if you always have looked at yourself or seen yourself as this sedentary eaglet just sitting there in your nice little comfortable nest, enjoying the surroundings and how comfortable it is, it's kind of hard to see yourself soaring, because you get, oh, this is good, I like this. Besides which, it takes a lot more effort to soar. You got to use some muscles, and you got to put in some energy and put out some effort. You know, it's a lot more fun to just lay back and go, feed me, acknowledge me, love me, open the door for me, me. But then, all of a sudden, the food stops. There's a sign it's time that you might want to move on. You know, mama not bringing the food for you anymore.
On that point, on this money grab with Daystar recently, they got a whole program to get money and do stuff. One guy said that God will move you. To get provision, you need to go to the place where God will provide. You go to that place where you're supposed to be, He'll provide it there. Like He told Elijah to go where the ravens were, or go where you're supposed to be fed. You have to go to the place God wants you to be.
Yeah, and so if the food stops in the place that you once were, and you ain't being fed, and there's no food, but all of a sudden the problems start arriving, and the challenges, and the tests, and some disaster after disaster comes, well, that's when the thorns and the thistles start coming up as well in that place, and then you don't have the nourishment, like Pastor Robert was saying. You don't have the nourishment to rest in that place that you once were. Or you don't have the grace to do it. Because when we have that grace, when we have the grace of God to do something, then we're able to go through some of these tough spots and these tests, because that grace of God empowers us to not really realize exactly how challenging the situation was or is. However, what happens when the grace is now removed, when it's not there? That's when we notice some thorns and thistles coming up, and that's when we realize this place is tough. There's some tight spots here, and I don't know that I want to remain here anymore. So Moses' thorns and thistles was, of course, the murdering of that Egyptian man, and the people knowing about it and talking about it and rising up against him, and not letting him forget what he did. Have you noticed that when you get attacked by people, they always bring up what you did? So we have to live all of our life with what we did. So make sure you know what you do. Oh, that's a tweetable. Tweet that out, somebody.
You're talking about birds and nests now. You're talking about tweeting.
Yeah. But it's true. You have to be mindful of what you do, because we have to live with it all our life. Well, the people kept bringing up what Moses did in the past, of course, killing the Egyptian man. So he had to get out of the nest. He had to leave the palace and the marble floors and the gold columns and the big fans, as well as the grapes that are being fed to him, and the wine being served to him, and somebody to bathe him, and somebody else to do his laundry and iron his little shorts. And oh, the nest was real good for Moses, I'll tell you. It was tough to leave. They had somebody there to teach him, to train him, always somebody around to attend to his every need and want. Well, that shut down, because he had to get out of there. The Pharaoh was after him. The Pharaoh wanted to kill him. The Egyptians weren't impressed that he killed one of theirs, so he flees to the desert, a dry place, a barren place. And while he's running from his past, he runs right into his purpose. Isn't that just how God does it, huh? The purpose that God created and placed in him. While escaping how he once was defined, he stumbles headfirst into this brand new identity that he never ever had before. The correct term for that, by the way, is an epiphany, a spiritual awakening. That doesn't happen, by the way, every day or every week. People just don't have those. But periodically through our lives, if we're teachable and we're paying attention, we will have these moments of spiritual awakening, whereby we change kind of the lens through which we're looking, and we start looking at everything as we move forward. And in Moses' case, it was a change that affected the next 40 years of his life. It was a bad moment. It was one of those eagle nest stirring moments that placed him out there in the wilderness. And all of a sudden now he doesn't know who he is. I mean, this is a big deal because his identity always had been a problem. He was a Hebrew boy, but he didn't grow up with the Hebrews. He was raised with the Egyptians. And he was already attacked with this identity crisis. Too Hebrew to be Egyptian, too Egyptian to be Hebrew. People who have this complicated background and whose resume of life has to be censored should relate to this situation pretty well. I'm talking about the person who only gives you half of their testimony. You know, in other words, there are certain parts that they'll reveal because it's available for public consumption, but the rest is just, it's off limits for right now. There's some stuff over here that I can't really tell you at this point in time. These are the people whose testimony always includes that phrase, it's complicated. You know, Dad was a good dad, but it's complicated. Mom was a good mother, but it's complicated. I had a happy childhood growing up, but it's complicated. Whenever anybody throws that but in there, in that explanation or testimony, it always means, oh, there's some extenuating circumstances. They're saying, I can tell you about this part of my life. However, the other stuff for right now, I just don't want to bring up to anybody at this particular time. And the thing is, it's that other stuff that shapes and molds a person just as much as the good stuff. So we have to understand that it all blends together, even though there's some of that baggage that doesn't and isn't for private consumption at the moment. It all works together for shaping and molding a person as they go forward. And Moses was his own man. I mean, he was strong and mighty. He'd been raised strong and powerful. He was educated. He was intellectual. He was respected in Egypt. Yet he wasn't truly an Egyptian. He was a Hebrew. But at the same time, he wasn't genuinely a Hebrew. He couldn't just go over and hang out with the Hebrews because, well, the Hebrews, plain and simple, just didn't like him. He was like, oh, you smell like an Egyptian. And you got the nerve to talk with an Egyptian accent, you know. Whew. You know how some people, have you ever encountered those people who hear your speech and then they say, oh, you talk like those other people, like those South Carolinians over there, or those folks from Newfoundland, you know. I'm sure we've all had those types of people. So there is this complication or identity crisis going on here with Moses' life. He had settled into the Egyptian lifestyle. I mean, they didn't blink when they saw Moses around the palace. They didn't arrest him. They didn't call 911 and have the police come and take him away. He kind of belonged there. But not completely. Not totally. Well, it's complicated, right? You ever have a family reunion? Huh? Maybe you can relate a little bit to what the picture is that I just drew. Actually, it's interesting now that I mentioned a family reunion. It's interesting to me how people, more mature people, say, well, we've been married for 50 years, and everybody applauds and they clap and they do, yeah, we've been happily married for 50 years. They're lying. Yeah, I said it. I meant it. I'm here to represent it. Nobody's been happily nothing for 50 years. Come on.
Otherwise, they ain't married.
Seriously. Really, every moment of every day of every week, no. It just, see, right there, people are only telling you part of the story. They don't want to blow their cover, so they're telling you what they're making available for public consumption. And actually, that kind of thing kind of bothers me, because that's the baloney that oftentimes is fed. And if we buy that, and people do, because they watch their TV shows and their movies and read their magazines or their romance novels, and if you buy that everything is hearts and flowers and little smiley faces, you get to realize that no, it's not really like that. And if you go by that and set your relationship up, and you're walking out and you're seeing how it's supposed to be on TV, and yours is not like that, a lot of people just turn and they walk away from it. They turn their back and walk out on it. However, in real life, we got to go through some ups and downs and some nooks and crannies, and sometimes we do stay together. But it's complicated. And as messed up and as complicated as life is, nowadays, bad has gotten worse. And that's why we all have to watch out about muttering and complaining about bad, because it could get worse. And it will if we keep muttering and complaining about it. And it was kind of complicated for Moses in the palace, because it probably was bad. I mean, on the inside, he had to have had some questions, some insecurities, some deficiencies. He felt like, "Oh, I really don't belong here. I'm a Hebrew, but I'm in the Egyptian palace." But, he was eating good. He was eating good in there. And Pharaoh had MTV and the sports package channel and video on demand. And he was sleeping good, and they were washing his clothes and waiting on him hand and foot. So he was pushing down that baggage of bad that he was feeling inside of him, until bad got worse. The eagle stirred the nest. And now Moses has to climb out of the nest, and he starts running through the wilderness. And of course, this is a wilderness that he had never, ever been in before. He didn't know anything about survival techniques for the wilderness. He was raised in the palace. So Moses is out there in this barren, dry place trying to figure out, what plant I can eat, what plant's not poisonous, what's not going to kill me, what can I eat. He's trying to figure out what cactus to break open to suck on to get some moisture. He had to figure it all out, because he's in a new place and a new season of his life. Has life ever put you in a new place and you have to learn how to function all over again? You have no idea of what this new environment's all about. And that's when what was complicated now all of a sudden is a crisis. Moses, you see, he's free of Pharaoh. He's out of Egypt. Everything's okay there. He got the victory in that part of his life. But now, what about the wilderness? Have you ever got victory in one part of your life, and you're dancing over here? I got the victory. And then over here, there's something you're thinking, oh man, I got this thing on the 15th. And I don't know. I just don't know about this. Have you ever been like that? Over here it's great, but over here, challenges.
All this seems to confirm that the Egyptians did have alien technology at MTV and all this stuff.
There you go. Yeah. Write that up. Put it in your post. You have my permission. So Moses is out here in the desert, in the midst of all of this, and guess what? God leaves him there for 40 years. Moses is wandering around out there. Eventually he runs into these Midianites, and Jethro kind of takes him up under his wings, and he says, don't eat that. That'll kill you, boy. That's not good. Stay away from that. And you dig some of those roots up right there. You can squeeze them, you get some moisture out of that. And in all his education and learning in the palace, Moses never was taught how to suck moisture out of certain roots to stay alive in the desert. He was never taught, how to shield himself from the hot desert sun. But he learned this stuff hanging around with Jethro and the Midianites. And then one day Jethro says, son, come on over here. I got some work for you to do. And Moses is like, work? Qu'est-ce que c'est work? What is this thing, this four-letter word, work? Of course, at the palace, I mean, they had people to work for them. Everybody was there to tend to Moses and everybody else. So now all of a sudden he's forced with, oh, work. So what do we do now? Because, you know, not all information is transferable. All this education he got in the palace about the sciences and the best education and the best of everything, he couldn't transfer that out into the desert. It just didn't compute out there. Because now this is not that. And that is a mystery when you got this. It's just not working out. So Moses has to become a student all over again. And isn't that just like our loving Father God? Always teaching if we're willing to learn and receive the lessons and we grow. A person cannot be important outside of their element. And he was learning this. I mean, just because you're successful over there in the business world doesn't mean you're going to be a big star in church. We have to humble ourselves and become teachable and allow God to just shape and mold us into what he desires us to be for him. Anytime you step into a new arena, that's when the humility has to come. We have to humble ourselves and become a student all over again. So here's Moses walking around with his chest all puffed out. Yeah, he's the prince of Egypt. And Jethro asks him to come on out here and shovel some of this sheep dung for me. How's that for a test of pride? Huh? Can you do what you've got to do in the spot God has placed you? And learn what you've got to learn to allow God to move you to the next spot that he wants you to go to, from level to level to level. Because if we don't pass the test, we will never complete the class. And we'll have to just keep taking it over and over and over and over again because we didn't learn what we needed to learn the first time. So here comes Moses. He doesn't have time now to worry about who mom is and where dad is and who he should worship and which language he's got to speak now. He's out there in the wilderness and all of a sudden shoveling sheep dung and cleaning up behind them. And Jethro told Moses to lead the sheep.
He's in the hot sun with a bald head, too.
Yeah. Have you ever been around sheep? Yeah, have you? I mean, I grew up and spent some time on the farm, so yeah, I've been around them. And on our journeys to Kenya, we've been around plenty of sheep and goats, and they're stanky. They're usually dirty. They're not like the photos that they show. Oh, there's this Snow White, the beautiful little sheepies. No, they're dirty and they're smelly and they're stinky. And when you're out in the midst of them, you want to be carrying some Febreze and some Lysol and some Pine Sol, some sort of disinfectant. And that's when you also realize that, wait a minute, all these photos I've seen of them, I know it, they were photoshopped. They're not white. They're dirty. They're dirty. And there's this odor. Well, it's not even odor, it's odor. It's like a French term, it's odor. Ooh, if they could bottle that stuff, they'd call it Essence d'Odor. Actually, they probably would sell it as a pesticide or an insecticide, because with that on the sheep, they don't ever have to worry about mosquitoes, because no pestilence comes around that stink, I'll tell you. And Moses is right in the middle of this environment. And at this point in time, you have to know that the enemy, Satan, had to be right up in his ear saying stuff like, "Wow, where is your God now? You're out here and I thought you had this mighty destiny. Your mother named you Moses because you're drawn out. I thought you were a king and a mighty man and a leader and a general and all of these things. And here you are out in this wilderness practicing survival techniques that you were never trained up in. Yeah, you're the king, all right. The king of the sheep. You know, so every so often, there are these periods of life we go through where it seems like all our real skills are being wasted. Ever been there in one of those things? It'll feel as if you're not being employed to your highest potential, kind of like you're living beneath your privilege. These are the spots that if you're not mindful, Satan will steal your peace and you'll see yourself as a failure. And that part of your life is a complete loss. So, if you're dreaming of how you've always wanted your life to turn out, and then you're in one of these places, you almost are getting to the point of real frustration, and you don't know where to turn. And this is kind of where Moses is. He's tramping through the sheepfold out there in the desert, and he's saying, well, at least I got away from Pharaoh. They didn't kill me. I scraped through. I'm making the best of a bad situation. And then all of a sudden, he has his epiphany. He just walked up on it. He wasn't fasting for it. He wasn't praying for it. He wasn't speaking in tongues. He just walks up on it, not expecting it at all. You know God is the master of suddenlies, isn't he? That means sometimes your life will take a turn that you never dreamed would happen. And it's not any gradual progression or evolution that leads to some kind of revolution in your life. It's just like suddenly, straight away, immediately, out of nowhere, phone call, one person, one time, one meeting, one interview, ba-boom, and your life changes for 40 years. That's what it did for Moses. Are you ready for one of those suddenlies in your life? Boy, I sure am. And it's coming. Jesus is the author and finisher of our faith, and we have been going through boot camp with him. Especially here, we've been going through it at the highest level. All the survival technique training, we've received it here. So the rewards are coming. Are you ready for some rewards? Yeah, you better be, because they're on the way too. Look at Moses. He's walking through the desert one day, minding his own business, doing what he's now gotten used to doing for the last 40 years. It's a daily routine, which, by the way, now makes him 80 years of age, everybody. So it took him 80 years before he finally figured out who he was. Isn't that encouraging? 80 years of not being sure, not being secure, 80 years of not having a definite and an absolute, 80 years of having this identity crisis and uncertainty, and 80 years of not quite fitting in with anybody. I mean, anybody. He couldn't quite bond with the Egyptians. He couldn't quite bond with the Midianites. He couldn't quite bond with the Hebrews. He was acquainted with all of them, but he was connected to none of them. It was complicated. Yeah. Kind of a misfit, right? And misfit people come in all colors, in all shapes and sizes, in all genders. They're not conservatives or liberals or New Democrats or Republicans and Democrats. Some are brunettes, some are redheads, some are blonde, some have long hair, some have no hair, some are beautiful, some are not so beautiful. The common denominator is that they are all misfit people. And misfits usually know, because it's on the inside of them. No matter what they have tried to do in their life, they somehow just don't fit into this group and don't fit in over here. And something happens that makes them just stand up, jump up, get out of the nest, because they're kind of that square peg in a round hole. Well, here's some great news in case you haven't figured out where I'm going with this. The misfit is part of God's plan for us as mankind. He never intended for you to fit. That's why Moses didn't fit in with the Hebrews. You can't lead what you don't fit in with. He didn't fit in with the Egyptians because you can't rebuke a devil that you're sleeping with. And he certainly didn't fit in with the Midianites, because if he would have, well, he would have built a house out there in the desert that God really didn't want him to remain in, and he would have been there. So all these situations where we don't fit in life, it's not that we're lost, it's just that God is leading us from faith to faith and higher level of it, and from glory to glory, because, as it says, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Most High God, and God delights in his ways. So take some more steps, everybody. God has you set up for it. I mean, we are right on the verge, on the edge of breakthrough and greatness, because God has been building us up and guiding us all along, getting us to take another step towards our purpose and right into our destiny. So it's not a time to give up and baby yourself. It's a time to get stirred up and out of the nest and get ready to take flight, just like God intended. It's not over. God is not finished with us, and he is about to do something amazing in us when we have the faith to take another step. Just like Moses, who stepped out And when he did, he ran right into this epiphany at the mountain of God. He ran right into this burning bush. One of those God wow moments. And he saw it, and the text says he kept walking. But the scripture also says he turned aside. One of those. He turned aside. Whoa, what's that over there? To see. If you're exposed to something and you can keep walking by, it's not for you. And I think we've probably all had illustrations of this, especially when we're talking to people and sharing Jesus with them, and you're saying something about God and the truth of his word and about Jesus, and they give it one of the glazed over eyeglass look. Oh, geez, look at that time. I think I gotta go. Well, let them go, because your pearls are not for them. However, if it is for you, even if you try and walk away, you will turn aside, like Moses did to see. And this is where it really gets good in the text. Not that it wasn't before this, but the Exodus 3 verse 1 through 6, because the verse says that God didn't speak to Moses when he first saw the burning bush. He didn't speak to him when he was exposed to the bush. The Bible says that when God saw that Moses turned aside, he turned back around, when he saw that Moses was attracted to what he had been exposed to, then God says, now I can talk to this guy. Now I can talk to him and reach him at a different level. So the question is, how badly do we want to hear from God? Do we have the desire to keep turning back and looking at his word? Do we make the time to study it and review all the YouTubes that we post and check the A to Z links on the church site and all the information that's constantly updated for you? How much effort are we really willing to put into being exposed to the things of God? Because our destiny is in the fire of the burning bush, just like it was for Moses. We need to keep turning back to it. Because if we run from it, then we're going to be running away from our purpose and destiny, because our destiny is in the storms of life, in those events that come, and in some of those trials and sorrows and what we've been talking about on the radio and here. Our destiny is in the fight to learn and grow with God and become the people he created us to always be. So when God saw that when Moses had been exposed to kept drawing him back, this is when God called to him. He didn't call to Moses until Moses turned aside, took a look again. And when he did, that's when God said, Moses, Moses, have you got something calling you inside? Is there something you can't quite understand and it's challenging you and it's pulling at you? Then take off your shoes, you're on holy ground. What do you mean, holy ground? I've been standing on the same ground out here for 40 years in sheep dung, and you're telling me it's holy ground? Get real. Come on. What is wrong with you? Well, it's holy because God is there. Every stage of your life is holy because God is there. So, why then do we worship the last stage of our life? Why do we not discover God in the stage and season of life that we're in right now, rather than longing for something or another season or another stage of our life that has already passed us by, or waiting for the next stage to come? Why don't we have the burning bush where we are right now? Things that make you say, So God says to Moses that the ground is holy. And you have to think at this point, Moses has got to be thinking, what? Really? Seriously? Holy ground, huh? I'm trying to figure out which root to suck on to get moisture out of, and what plant I can or can't eat, whether it's poisonous. Walking through this sheep dung, and you're telling me to take off my shoes because the ground is holy. Come on, really? If we curse the ground that God is taking us over, we will never reach the destination that he has for us. So here Moses is now, and God finally tells him that now, Big Mo, I'm going to show you why I've taken you this way. You were trying to lead the children of Israel someplace you'd never been yourself. And if I would have let you lead 40 years ago, you would have led them directly out into the wilderness and nobody would know what to do. But I let you go through some stuff out here in the wilderness first. So now you're ready. You're ready to lead somebody. Now you've got some credibility for the things you've suffered. God let Moses suffer and cry and scrape and scrimp and save and do without and maybe make do without certain things and those other things that weren't around. But it never meant that God wasn't planning to bless him or had forgotten about him. It just meant that God wanted Moses to be able to help somebody else who was going through a situation that he could tell, this is how you make it through here. I've been in this environment before. I learned some things. I've got some important survival skills. And the same God that brought me out of my situation is going to bring you out of yours. God does not waste anything in our lives. What we suffer through, the trials, the tests, what we go through will not be wasted. Nothing is squandered. How you had to scrape, how you had to cut corners, how you had to make do, how you had to raise those children all by yourself, how you had to get a second job to pay the rent and the bills, and how you had to learn to get through a broken heart. None of that is wasted. And glory to God for being the most amazing, loving, faithful teacher. He has a way of taking all those disconnected pieces of our life that make absolutely no sense. How you suffered, who didn't raise you, how he got you pregnant and rejected you and the baby. All those things. He will, that oftentimes we equate with delays or losses or failures. God will turn to good. Nothing in your life that you've been through is going to be wasted. I don't know what that means to you. I don't know where you and God are or what you two have been talking about, but I'm here to tell you that God is a redeemer of all things. He wastes not, and he loves you, and he has promised to supply all your needs. Nobody who left you, nobody who walked out on you, nothing that you have had to endure is going to be wasted. God is going to redeem everything that you've gone through to get you ready for what he is about to do in your life. So God says to Moses, go down there and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses was the only one that God could get to do this assignment. Think about it. Moses could speak to Pharaoh. He knew the language of the palace. He knew the protocol, the procedure, the processes. He knew who to bow before. He knew who to talk to, who to stand up against. He knew how to serve. Not that he served with his people, but he served up under Jethro out there in the wilderness. So he was well acquainted with what it was like to do hard labor out in the hot sun and toil and with the sweat of his brow, which allowed him to be able to relate to the Hebrews in a way that he could never before. So Moses does go down there and says to Pharaoh, I am that I am has sent me. And he said, let my people go. And Pharaoh says, yeah, right. And your name is what again? And he calls out his magicians, of course, and they throw their rods down and they turn into serpents. And see, now Moses, had he not gone through some stuff out there in the desert, would have been maybe shaken a little bit by this. But he just said, oh yeah, watch this. He throws his serpent down, or his rod down, which turns into a serpent, and it chases all of their serpents off. And he picks up his rod again, and he says, now check this out. And he puts his hand in his tunic, by his bosom, brings it out. It's all leprous. Puts it back in again, brings it out. It's healed. Then he turns water into blood. And by this time, Pharaoh's saying, whoa, Chikai, wait a minute. Whoa. We didn't teach you all this stuff at our fancy schmancy school of Scientology, technology, and donair making. Where'd you learn all this stuff? And this is where Moses said, nope. I didn't learn it here. I learned it out there in the desert. I learned it in the storm. I learned that in the fire. What did you learn as a single mom? What did you learn as someone who lost your job? What did you learn when you discovered some family secrets? What did you learn when all your friends disowned you? What did you learn as a divorcee? What did you learn when you couldn't buy new tires? Did you learn how to fix the old ones? What did you learn from people around you who hated you? God doesn't waste anything.
Not even an excellent sermon to a handful of people on a Bible study. We thank God it'll go further than this.
Well, thank you. God will teach us how to survive when we're open to His ways and we remain humble enough to be ready to receive them. He will teach us how to survive in the desert. There are so many scriptures we can quote and should declare every day. You are my hope, my confidence from my youth. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Cast all your anxiety on Him because He loves you. Anybody else got one or two? He will sustain us, never allow the righteous to be shaken. Come to me, all you who are weary and brokenhearted. I will give you rest. That's what we should be declaring every day. So Moses brought the children of Israel out of captivity. And he brought them out because he had been out. You can't bring people where you have not been. How are you going to lead me to a place of which you have no intimate knowledge and experience? Dreams are good. However, being a perpetual dreamer isn't, because that just turns into the blind leading the blind. However, if one of us has been somewhere before, that's different. Hey, don't eat that plant. That's not good for you. Might harm you. Oh, how'd you know that? I've been here before. I've done a thing or two. And oh yeah, we can cut the roots out of this plant over here and we can suck them for moisture as soon as we dig that out. Well, how'd you know that? I've been here before. We can do that and we can share that experience. And if somebody hasn't been there before, then when you are faced with a test or a trial, you can't handle it. But because you've been there before, nothing that you've been through is going to be wasted. Some call that the school of hard knocks. Moses didn't go to Harvard, or Yale. He went to the University of Sheepdung. And he graduated magna cum poopy, I think, or cum laude, or something.
Cum laude.
Something like that. And he was now prepared to lead the children of Israel out across the desert because everything he had led before was just practice. It was preparation. God was training him up. If you look back over your life and the uniqueness of the complications of your life, it's the complications that are the clues that unwrap the destiny of your future. Because whatever you're going to be is already what you are, just in seed form. Moses is a leader because he was a leader. It's only that he was leading the sheep. That's why the Bible says, and Moses led the sheep in the wilderness. And then when Moses comes back in the next quarter of his life, he's leading people now. Guess where? Through the wilderness. Each realm, each level takes us into a new dimension. Well, actually, it's not a new dimension. It's just the next dimension of the former level. And this is where we should realize that Romans 8:28 has such meaning. Paul said at that point, all things work together for the good of them who love Jesus and are called for his purpose. See, all things may not feel good to us when we're going through them or look good to us, but they work together for good because God is having his purpose that he put in us achieved, and he's leading us every step of the way. He doesn't wait to crown you, to call you. He has been prepping you for what you are about to do all of your life. All of your life, the preparation has been going on. All of your life. And nothing that you've been through is going to be wasted. He broke your pridefulness through your weaknesses, humbled you in your wilderness. And he humbled you so he could exalt you and lift you up and promote you when the time was right. He humbled you knowing that when he did promote you to the high place, you wouldn't be arrogant because you would remember what he did. So wherever you are in this process, this is the promise of God to you. Nothing that you have been through shall be wasted. Now watch this. What you think is a battle, whatever test you are in, are going to be in, have been in, what you think is a battle is really a training exercise. Oh, God, if you'd only been here, my brother wouldn't have died. I lost this fight because you didn't help me. And God says, hey, that wasn't a fight. If I wanted to stop your brother from dying, I could have. I hung around until he died because the dying of your brother was the preparation for the resurrection. I needed him to die so my strength could be made perfect in his weakness. The reason I didn't do it in the last dimension is because the miracle was too small to get the attention that it needed and should have gotten. So I waited for bad to get worse, so that when I bring you out of that situation, there would be absolutely no doubt that it was me, God, who brought you out of that calamity. Nothing that we have been through is going to be wasted. God will gather up all the parts, all the fragments of your life that you might have thought were gone forever and lost, and He will connect them. And He will bless you in His perfect timing so that all the confusion and all the frustration and the sadness and the sorrows and the pains of disaster after disaster will make some sense. It'll be clear how God has been training us all up, preparing us for greatness and abundance and total prosperity. Nothing you have gone through is going to be wasted. God's not forgotten you. He's not forgotten me. He's not forgotten any of us. So, if you've been feeling overlooked, denied, frustrated, passed over, stop fretting, stop despising, stop worrying, stop stressing about it. God has seen every tear that you have shed, and He will redeem all in your life. We have a God that is about to bring all the desert areas of your life together so that they will bloom like that promised land that He promised of milk and honey to walk us right into it. In Jesus' name, He will do it. Amen.
Amen.